Hey, welcome back. I'm Dean Tuvey. This is How to Manage Tech. If you haven't been here before, you've jumped into the middle of a series on Agile Project Management, you might want to consider looking at the first part of the series. I've put a card in the top for you to take you to that one. If you're continuing on, welcome back. Now in this episode, what I want to do is I want to show how DSDM, the particular flavor of Agile Project Management, the Agile framework that I'm using, combines the best of both worlds. And in particular, what I'm talking about is Scrum, which provides us with product delivery, and an approach to that is par excellence. There is no competitor to Scrum in terms of how well we forge a high-performance team. But I also want to show you some of the value that comes from having proper project control from some of our more traditional frameworks. Let's get stuck in. Okay, so you'll remember that in our last episode we were comparing traditional Agile, and there's a real risk that I've torpedoed traditional, thrown it under a bus, and you think I want to have nothing to do with it. Be very careful, because there's a lot of good stuff in traditional frameworks. DSDM borrows the best pieces from traditional and uses them to plug a major issue in Scrum. Let me show you what I mean. I want to talk to you about your overall project approach, and I want to show you why I think DSDM is such a strong way of doing things. Let's start firstly with the traditional approach in PRINCE2. So you have this piece called project control, and what project control does is target a project manager and let them know what it is that they're doing across the course of the project. PRINCE2 targets a project manager, projects in a controlled environment too. And I discuss this in my IT management overview lesson. If you haven't seen that, I've put a card up in the top for that. But this is true also of PMBOK as well. It offers project control. Now, particularly in PRINCE2, what happens is we have a project startup piece where we get in place a business case, a lessons learned log, risk register, a plan in the form of a product breakdown structure, we get a schedule, a budget, and so on. And then what happens is work is performed by teams in what we call work packages. The two big problems that I find with PRINCE2 is that the startup piece can look very traditional with lots and lots of design up front, and then the project control looks very paperwork heavy. And when you do a PRINCE2 course, you're presented with all these templates and documents, and it actually seems a little bit overwhelming when you actually try and come back and use them. The fundamentally biggest issue with PRINCE2 is that all the work, the deliverable, is done in the work packages by teams. And the framework itself is targeted at project managers and telling them what they should do, not necessarily how the teams should organize themselves. What I want to suggest then is that one of the best frameworks on the market for how you should organize a team, or potentially multiple teams, but let's just focus in on a single team, is Scrum. Now, Scrum is all about what we call product delivery. It assumes that we have a team. It assumes we have an environment. It assumes we have a product that we're working on. And it also assumes that we have a product backlog. All of the items that we're going to work on have been nicely groomed with the highest value item sitting on the top for us. Where did all this come from? Scrum doesn't answer this question. It's not the job of Scrum to do that. It's only 12 pages long as a guide, right? Can't recommend enough that you go and find a copy of it. And I'll be dealing with Scrum later in my overall management series. For now, though, all I need you to know is what are the core characteristics of Scrum. Let's add this to our diagram. So the focus in Scrum is on what we call product delivery, through a series of sprints producing deliverables that go towards incremental release of a solution. And Scrum has at its heart a self-managing team, typically around less than 10 people. They are empowered. They have the right skills required, permanent. They're cross-functional in that they can do all the things required, develop, build, test, get the job done, and Scrum is focused on software development. Fantastic framework, the most popular Agile framework out there. Massive gap, doesn't have a business case, doesn't have any design up front, just assumes that is available. Scrum itself talks about the possibility you might be running in a project modality. So I want to offer the idea that if we look at Scrum for its power in terms of doing product delivery, what we could do is we could substitute Scrum into the work package space, which is a bit of a gap as far as PRINCE2 is concerned, in terms of how the team does their work, a method for the team to follow. Let's go ahead and do that. The product delivery piece that is offered to us by Scrum dovetails in here. Now what happens is our project managers now have a method that they can observe the team using. And the main thing here too, we just have to remove the software. It's any solution that we're building, not just a software application. So now what we have in DSDM is a marriage between Scrum and traditional PRINCE2, where PRINCE2 is plugging some holes in Scrum, not having any upfront planning or design or business justification or some of the key ingredients that we're going to need. And this is a really important thing, because if you try and take Scrum out of the software domain and into the business domain or into larger pieces of work without doing some of this preparatory work, it can fall over and get in trouble. It gets the reputation of being fragile, agile. And this is where DSDM is coming in and supplementing Scrum with a little bit more of the project control. Now, when I say a little bit more, what happens is we've taken a razor blade to the PRINCE2 products and control methods and trimmed them right back so that the project manager has a lot more time to spend helping the teams out and supporting the teams in a servant leader style. So let me show you what I'm going to do with my project control then is I'm going to lean it right out like this. This becomes my new Agile PM project control. Much lighter weight, much less administrative overhead, a lot more time for the project manager to think, to spend time with the team. I'm going to add here what we call a feasibility stage and a foundation stage, which is effectively a much reduced startup stage. So remember I said enough design up front as opposed to that big design up front getting here, right? But also complementing Scrum and avoiding the no design up front, which Scrum simply assumes the design has been done. All right, so you've got the best of both worlds. We've got enough project control to satisfy governance requirements, give the organization a sense of where it's going, along with the world's best high-performance team management framework for the product delivery piece in the form of Scrum. And so now, what it also means is that when you come to study DSDM, it's a great introduction to project management, and it also acts as a gateway into Scrum and into PRINCE2 if you want to go down that way. PRINCE2 still has a lot of recognition. It has a lot of value. There's an agile version of PRINCE2. There's an agile version of PMBOK, but they're bolt-ons. Agile PM from DSDM is born agile, born out of rapid application development experience in the 90s. I love it. Can't commend it to you enough. So let me just add a few things then into this startup piece, this lean project control piece that we get with DSDM. So what you're going to do, you're still going to get all the things that you need. You're going to get a business case. You're going to get a plan or schedule, if you like. You're going to get risk management, a design, right? Just enough design up front in the form of requirements. These requirements have had that Moscow prioritization. And it's not uncommon to do the feasibility and the foundation potentially over just a period of weeks and then make a rapid start. So you got all this core thinking, and essentially you get your project set up on what we call firm foundations before you launch in. I think that'll be a wrap for now. I'll see you on the next lesson.